We need to send the clearest possible message to the warmongering, genocidal Democratic Party by doing everything possible to defeat Harris in Michigan. The line of history runs through Michigan. We need to be on the correct side of history, and we need to bring along as many people as possible to stand with us on that side. On the side against genocide and imperialist war, on the side against the billionaire agenda.
Welcome to On Strike, a production of Workers Strike Back. I'm Kaylin Nicholson. We launched On Strike as a tool to help build movements, to put forward clear strategies and tactics for those movements to help them win the biggest possible gains for working people. Over the next 2 months, we're going to have a particular focus on fighting to win the largest possible vote for Jill Stein and against Harris and Trump, which we believe is the #1 strategic priority for both the anti-war and workers' movements in the U.S. Every vote for either of the two warmongering, genocidal candidates of the billionaire class undermines the fight to end the genocide and undermines the power of working people against the bosses. As the Abandon Harris movement correctly says, there is no lesser evil. There is no gentler genocide. We brought you live coverage of the DNC protests, including our rally with Jill Stein and Abandon Harris founder Dr. Hassan Abdul Salam, and we will be continuing to organize with both of these groups in the weeks to come around our shared goal of winning every possible vote away from Harris and Trump and for Jill Stein. Today, we're going to be bringing you content from our Workers Strike Back meeting here in Seattle earlier this week, where we were joined by Rizwan Samad from Abandon Harris to honor the legacy of Ayşenur Ezgi Aygi, the young Turkish-American anti-war activist who was brutally murdered by Israeli military forces while peacefully opposing the illegal expansion of Israeli settlements into Palestinian farmland in the West Bank. Several of us in Workers Strike Back knew Ezgi personally through her activism and discussed strategy for the anti-war movement with her this past spring when she was playing a leading role in organizing the anti-war encampment at the University of Washington. Her memory will always serve as an inspiration to keep fighting to end the genocide in Gaza and to end all imperialist war and oppression. Our meeting in Seattle also featured reports from worker struggles taking place right now in and around Seattle, including the Boeing workers' contract fight, the fight to defend Seattle's historic $15 an hour minimum wage, and the struggle of Cherry Street coffeehouse workers for living wages, fair scheduling, and an end to sexual harassment by their boss. Please reach out to us if you're interested in getting involved in any of these efforts, including if you are a union member interested in submitting a resolution in your local opposing any and all attacks on Seattle's highest-in-the-nation minimum wage, or a resolution to rescind your union's endorsement of Kamala Harris.
Last week, the Israeli military brutally murdered Seattle resident and recent University of Washington graduate Ayşenur Ezgi Aygi while she was protesting against the illegal expansion of settlements in the West Bank and the genocide in Gaza. Ezgi was intentionally murdered by the Israeli military with a shot to her head. I knew Ezgi personally, as Rizwan did. She and I were in the same socialist organization for several years as many other of my fellow Workers Strike Back members. When she was 18, she went to Standing Rock as part of our socialist delegation in solidarity with the movement against the Dakota Access Pipeline in the dead of winter. My last conversation with Ezgi was only a couple of months ago at another Workers Strike Back meeting like tonight's at the University of Washington, right here. We spoke about her involvement in the campus anti-war protests, the strategy for the anti-war movement, about the need to vote against both the warmongering candidates in this election. Our deepest condolences to Ezgi's family. This is an enormous loss for all those who knew her and for our movement. As Ezgi herself would have said, the media attention her killing has received, as opposed to the 200,000 Palestinian deaths, is because she was an American citizen. The best way we can honor her memory is by organizing to end the genocide. But at this moment, organizing against a genocide has to mean taking a stand against genocide in the US presidential election, which has to mean rejecting both the warmongering candidates, Harris and Trump, and their warmongering parties of genocide, the Democrats and Republicans. Because what stands out is that even this brutal murder of an American citizen has not slowed the advance of the bloody policies of the Biden Harris administration 1 inch. The horrific landscape in Gaza and increasingly in the West Bank is unspeakable. It has advanced more rapidly than perhaps any genocide of this scale in human history. In less than 1 year, an estimated 10% of the population is now dead, entire bloodlines wiped out. Alongside the bloody carnage is the shocking destruction of infrastructure of every aspect, from roads to residential buildings, from hospitals to universities. This has itself claimed tens of thousands of lives due to lack of water, food, sanitation, and mobility. And make no mistake about the objectives of Netanyahu and the Israeli ruling class. This is about flattening Gaza and the West Bank on such a scale as to make it unlivable for those Palestinians who survived the genocide. Some have even speculated that it is an attempt by the Israeli ruling class at a final solution of their genocidal ethnic cleansing project. And the Israeli ruling class have certainly done or said nothing to prove otherwise. Democratic Party leaders and leaders of organizations that are tied at the hip to the Democrats, including the labor leaders who are cheerleading Harris, have over many decades used the slogan "Never Again" in reference to genocide. They don't have the right to use this slogan. That's right. They have no right to talk about ESGI. They have lost all credibility, all authority, all believability to speak of the needs of the oppressed. This party has always been a rotten, warmongering party of the billionaire class. It is now morally and politically bankrupt in every sense of the word. The blood of Aisha Noor Eski Aigi and of the 200,000 Palestinian lives lost in this genocide are all over the hands of Harris, Biden, and the whole Democratic Party, as it is all over their system as well, their system of capitalism, which, as Karl Marx said, comes dripping from head to foot from every pore with blood and dirt. As for working people and the oppressed, we can never support the Democratic Party again. This starts now, and in fact, it should have started a long time ago. The bare minimum that can be done at present in order to stand against genocide is to vote against both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and to vote instead for Jill Stein. We are called on to do much more than that. As those of you in this meeting will know, AOC recently attacked Jill Stein on social media in an utterly shameless video. AOC, who herself has blood on her hands by disgustingly backing first Biden and now Harris to the hilt, called Jill Stein predatory. We should not be surprised. This tells you all you need to know about AOC at this point. She has herself become a thoroughly predatory figure. From running as a self-described workers' representative and quote-unquote democratic socialist, she is now an unapologetic attack dog for the Democratic Party and, in reality, the billionaire class. And this is after she completely abandoned her own promises to fight for Medicare for all, a $15 minimum wage, and defend the same working people she completely betrayed, including by becoming a strikebreaker against the railroad workers. And now she's defending genocide by defending Harris. That is exactly what she's doing. It is fitting, in a way, that if there was any remaining idea that the Democrats could be reformed from the inside, that AOC herself would be the final nail in the coffin of that utterly failed strategy. It is beyond ironic and shameful that this same Democratic Party, which once ruthlessly attacked independent left candidate Ralph Nader, some of you are too young to have known this, but it's a fact, that they once ruthlessly attacked independent left candidate Ralph Nader for allegedly helping to bring George W. Bush and Dick Cheney to power. That same party is now celebrating Dick Cheney's recent endorsement of Kamala Harris as though it were the second coming. And it shouldn't be surprising, though, to us, really, because this is also the same Democratic Party that embraced George W. Bush's carpet bombing of Afghanistan and Iraq, just as they now embrace genocide in Gaza. This is the same Democratic Party that fiercely drove forward the neoliberal bipartisan onslaught against working people over decades, including during the Clinton and Obama administrations. I said that voting against Harris and Trump is the bare minimum that working people can do who oppose this genocidal war and the rest of the bloody anti-worker agenda of the billionaire class. What are the next steps? We need to fight for every single vote we can for Jill Stein in every state, not so-called safe states, but every single state. Just today, the Council on American Islamic Relations, the nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization, released some results from its August presidential election survey of American Muslim voters. Jill Stein is polling ahead of Harris in 3 crucial swing states. Stein is polling at 35% in Arizona, at 40% in Michigan, and at 44% in Wisconsin. And we have to be clear. I have heard some people in the Green Party say that we can turn Michigan green, by which they imply that she can win the majority of the votes as compared to Harris and Trump. We have to be clear, that is not what's on the horizon, but what is completely achievable and is absolutely worth fighting for is to defeat Harris in Michigan. It is crucial that we speak the truth about what is possible this year, because if we don't, there is a real danger that the same results on election night that could be the energizing basis for our organizing conference in February could instead be greeted with a feeling of demoralization. We have to avoid that potentially fatal mistake, and that is why it is important for us to characterize our battle lines very, very accurately. We are talking about, as Brother Hassan Abdul Salam, founder of Abandon Harris, has said, that we want to defeat Harris in Michigan. It is the most important state in this election, and we need to send the clearest possible message to the warmongering, genocidal Democratic Party by doing everything possible to defeat Harris in Michigan. The line of history runs through Michigan. We need to be on the correct side of history, and we need to bring along as many people as possible to stand with us on that side, on the side against genocide and imperialist war, on the side against the billionaire agenda. We need to do this systematically by building mass rallies in Michigan and in other states, including here in Washington. We need to carry out systematic get-out-the-vote operations in key states, especially the swing states. Worker Strike Back will be doing one here in Washington state and strongly supporting efforts in Michigan and other swing states. We need to publicly and courageously stand up against all the attack dogs, and there will be a lot more attacks by allegedly progressive figures like AOC. The Democratic Party's dogs of war are just getting started. We need a new mass party for the working class and for the oppressed. And we will never get there by backing the warmongering parties of the billionaire class in election after election. I also agree with Brother Hassan and others who have said that there can be no talk of quote-unquote lesser evil in this election because, as he put it, there is no gentler genocide. Esgy would have testified to that if she were here with us, as she would have been if Biden and Harris had cut off all military funding to Israel and ended the genocidal war. My organization, Worker Strike Back, is hosting multiple meetings this coming week in Kansas City, Chicago, and Boston. Please contact us to register for any of these events. Those of you who are watching on the live stream, we are going to be having in-person meetings this coming week in Kansas City and Boston and in Chicago on October 1st. Please contact us to register for any of these events. Worker Strike Back is also as was mentioned, calling for a mass organizing conference next February after the election so that we can take forward the momentum of what we are doing now, build on it, and fight to end the genocidal war, to fight for real gains for working people and the oppressed. We need to get far better organized so that we can tap into the enormous potential power that working people have, and it is enormous, to fundamentally change society.
When we have friendly relationships in our movements, we can discuss important strategic questions like this openly and honestly. Abandon Harris has taken an extremely courageous stand in this election against Harris, and they're willing to openly talk about punishing the Democrats for their warmongering and working to defeat Harris electorally. I think they should take this further. I think they should explicitly endorse Jill Stein, and it's good news that they've said they're now planning to make a decision on endorsement this month. Because at a challenging time for the anti-war movement, fighting for every vote for Jill Stein is the clearest, most important next step we can point to. This is also an important opportunity for us to be able to talk to people about our broader message, about the need for a new political party for working people, and for a strong, militant labor movement that can serve as its backbone. In Seattle, we'll do the vast majority of our tabling on Capitol Hill and in the U District, where foot traffic is much higher than anywhere else, and we have an established political presence. But we'll also look for opportunities to set up tables in Arab immigrant communities where there are huge opportunities. Between now and the election, everybody should make sure to get out on tables and talk to people on the street about voting for Jill Stein. The next 2 months are a brief window, and we want to take advantage of it as much as we can. On our canvassing shifts, where we talk to people on the street about the election, the war, and voting for Jill Stein, they're 2 hours long. And I know many of us here are aiming to do that every week, volunteering once a week at least until the election, and even more frequently in the final days just before election day. Millions of working people and young people desperately need affordable housing and Medicare for all. Millions have watched the Democratic Party make decades of empty promises about the environment, while new climate change points of no return are passed every year. They've seen working people sold out again and again. In just the past 4 years, they've watched Joe Biden end the COVID-era social programs, including the child tax credit, break a potential strike of railroad workers, abandon even a healthcare public option, and break his promise to fight for a $15 minimum wage. Right. They've watched Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez betray working people, transformed into party insiders. And they've taken to the streets and protested against the genocidal war on Gaza, while both parties one-upped each other to prove just how dedicated they are to shipping as much money and as many arms to Israel as possible. Millions of working people are looking for an alternative to the two parties of big business, and this will be an important thing that we discuss at our organizing conference in February. And we have to seize this opportunity with millions of people done with the two warmongering parties and wondering what to do next by fighting for every possible vote for Jill Stein over the next 2 months.
Thank you for inviting me here tonight. It's an emotional day for us today. Early this morning, we buried Aisha Noor in Palestine, West Bank. It's really ironic. The Thursday night, I was talking to my daughter, Yasmin. I said, why Aisha has to go to Palestine? And her answer was very simple. He said, Daddy, just like you went to Bosnia during the war. She's an activist. I didn't have any more questions for her. Early in the morning, my daughter started crying and entering into our room. And as a concerned parent, Me and my wife both woke up, and she gave the news that Aisha Noor was shot by IDF terrorists and got killed. There's thousands of young children died in Palestine. But I knew Aisha Noor. I knew her husband, Hamid Ali, who frequently visited my home and called me uncle. She went to the same university where we are sitting here. I went to this university. She was alumni of. She was an activist. She went there to protect the farmers. She died behind the olive tree. "21 years ago, another girl, Rachel Corey, died trying to stop the bulldozer to demolish the Palestinian home. These barbarism has been going on for too long. And it's sad the world is watching. But this time, thanks to social media and thanks to people like Shama, Patrick, and all of you, people are waking up and realizing that this is pure evil. Mainstream media used to hide all the information from us. But thanks to these handheld phone, social media, we're getting a news every day. And people are realizing what's really happening. Where is our hard-working tax dollars goes, and what these tax dollars do to kill innocent civilians. Not only Palestine, over 10 million people we have killed in the last 30 plus years around the world. But the young people are waking up and they say, no more, no more, not in our name. I joined the Democratic Party in 1988. I was a lifetime Democrat. I believed in my party, always supported. One has no mask, one has the mask. Both are very similar to each other. There's barely no difference. But they crossed the line. What they have done in the last 11 months, unconditional support to Israeli terrorist Benjamin Netanyahu, to massacre, to genocide, killing not only 40,000 people, they are close to 180 to 200,000 people. 40,000 people are those which Ministry of Gaza identify and people prayed for them. There are 150,000 who are buried alive underneath the rubble. And most of them are women and children. You know, This is unimaginable. I seen the war. I seen atrocity. I was in Bosnia as an aid worker. I seen suffering of the people. But this suffering is way beyond continuously bombing. 2,000 pounds of bomb dropping on the buildings. So far equivalent to 3 nuclear bombs. As a Democrat, I really believed in my party. And I said, I'm going to call. I went to Patty Murray's office. I cried over there with tears. But their deaf ears didn't pay any attention. Just made an empty promise. I went to Susan Delbenny's office. Wrote hundreds of emails. But this hardcore Zionist lover just keep making excuses. I went to Adam Smith's office, APAC lover. Nothing. They just cold-blooded killers. They sold their soul to APAC. And I started studying a little bit more. And then I see top 10 Biden's advisor right-hand man hold dual citizenship, Israeli and American, including Tony Blinken. So who you are going to represent? America or Israel? So we decided we have to do something. A friend of mine, Dr. Hassan, last trip to Israel, for no reason, he got arrested, handcuffed, stripped, kept 12 days in solitary confinement, without food. The man is a professor, law degree from Montreal, New York, NYU is his PhD. He did research from Harvard University, scholar. And when he came back and told his story, he said, we have to do something. And we started the movement called Abandon Biden. We paid a lot of pressure, and the devil decided not to run. But then we got another big devil, Harris. And I had the honor of meeting Dr. Jill Stein on our press conference in Chicago. And we decided firmly that we are going to abandon Harris. And we will support Dr. Jill Stein. We cannot, every 4 years, get into this trap. You have to vote for the lesser evil. Don't vote for the bigger evil. Evil or evil, it doesn't matter. There's a lesser or more. They both are evil. They both have been bought by the APAC. There's not much difference. You know, my friend Kashama, 10 years ago, when some of my friends mentioned to me there's a lady named Kashama Swam. And then when she started doing these amazing things, $15 minimum wage. The city is a rich city. People must get $15. And then she introduced many humanitarian bills. the Seattle City Council against many evil things which are going on around the world. You know, as an activist, when I was doing demonstration here, and one professor started telling me, "You are anti-Semite." I said, "I'm myself Semite. How can I be anti-Semite? I'm not anti-Semite. I'm not anti-Jew. I'm not anti-white. I'm not anti-black. I'm anti-injustice." You know, if you see injustice, activists get up and he do something because he has a good soul. So my appeal to all of you guys, do the right thing and don't give up. Don't think that your vote is going to be wasted. You must vote and keep fighting and keep fighting, and one day we'll prevail. You know, my friend said most of the thing prior to me, so I'm not going to take much of you guys' time. But Albert Einstein said something very special 70 years ago. It was good then and it was good today. He said, the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil. The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. So please, thank you all for coming, and thank you for inviting me here. And please, make sure. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, we are going to abandon this woman. We are going to abandon her. Thank you.
I think it was good that the question came up about a red Michigan. I think that is basically the same sort of argument we're going to hear through these next 2 months, is the idea that a vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Trump, and I think we have to completely reject that. Worker Strike Back doesn't support either Harris or Trump, and the point here is to actually build for the strongest possible vote for someone who is against this war and who is against the agenda of the billionaire class. And that's what we need to do. And the reason the Democrats have a danger of losing Michigan and losing these other swing states and losing the election, as others have said, has everything to do with the agenda they have carried out over many decades. And it has everything to do with backing a genocide in Gaza. If they lose, it is completely on them. It is not on people who vote for Jill Stein. Exactly. And I also agree with how Hassan put it. You can't talk about a lesser evil in an election when we're talking about an administration that is backing a genocide to the hilt. You can't talk about that. It is completely not something that we can support. But the truth is that we can't support the rest of their agenda either. The Democratic Party is in no way, shape, or form a party for working people. It is not a party for the oppressed. It is a party for the billionaire class. And the reason that they're in danger of losing is not actually mainly over Gaza. The reason they have a chance of losing is because working people are fed up. They are really angry at what's happened over these last 4 years. They are really angry about the cost of living crisis. They are really angry about the broken promises. And they're really angry at the progressive Democrats who completely sold them out also. They are completely despondent about that, many of them. And many of them are considering voting for Trump, who enthusiastically voted for Bernie Sanders a few years ago when Bernie Sanders was running on a working class platform, rather than backing a president who is unapologetically serving the interests of the billionaire class. And so that's how we got here. That's how we got here. It has nothing to do, actually, with Jill Stein. Although it's really good that Jill Stein is providing a left anti-war alternative in the context of all these attacks on her that she's doing in any way. And so what we need to do is not to be apologetic about our votes. We need to be absolutely enthusiastic about organizing as many votes as possible, including in the swing states, and I absolutely agree. A defeat for them in Michigan would be a huge step forward for the anti-war movement and for the working class. It would show there are consequences. And if she doesn't want to lose in Michigan, if the Democrats don't want to lose in the swing states, they have a very clear option in front of them. They can start representing the interests of working class people, and they can make it clear they won't back military aid for this genocide in Gaza. It's that simple.
Workers Strike Back organizes meetings similar to the one these excerpts were taken from in Chicago, Boston, and Kansas City, in addition to Seattle, as well as national Zoom meetings every month. If you're interested in attending an upcoming meeting, be sure to check out the events page on our website, workerstrikeback.org, and register for the meeting you wish to attend. We are also organizing rallies jointly with the Jill Stein campaign in October in Seattle and in Michigan, the most important strategic swing state for Jill Stein in this election. Be sure to register for one or both of those rallies. You can attend either in person or via live stream. If you agree with us that building the strongest possible vote for Jill Stein is the most important priority for the anti-war movement at present, and that we can't afford to let the momentum of Stein's presidential campaign end after November, but need to continue building towards an organizing conference in February to discuss next steps towards a new party for working people and the anti-war movement, consider becoming a member of Workers Strike Back by signing up for a monthly donation on our website, workerstrikeback.org. Solidarity.